Exciting episode 1 of Esports Central here on GTV. My name is TJ, joined by the one, the only, Matt in Iberia Clendaniel. How are you doing today?
I was pretty great. I was just bopping to the production music behind the
He
scenes. I was
was.
getting into
He was, he was busting out his dad's moves, and I have to say, you have at least one 40-year-old dad beat.
it. Wait, I didn't even do the sprinkler, TJ. Hold on. I've got a chair that goes up and down as well, so I can.
Oh my god, that's next level.
Yeah.
And that is why this is a segue. People turn to us for the news. We're going to be bringing you an hour and a very special episode. The hour will start with us breaking down the latest in esports news. We will move on to a preview of all the goodness you can expect here at GTV, talking through many of our friends and some new people to me as well that have been picked up to provide content for the upcoming few hours. Matt, I think we should start with a very simple introduction. Who are you? I've never seen you before in my life. What do you do?
Well, mostly I just sit around and try and make bad photoshops with you because you've been
That's
teaching me how to
true.
use GIMP. But professionally, because that is my profession. But on the side, I'm a professional esports commentator. I'd like to
Hmm.
get into full-time bad graphic design, but unfortunately, it doesn't pay the bills. Commentating does. So I've been commentating the LPL for Riot Games, off in China. Now that I've come back, we've been doing some League of Legends action. I just was on Twitch Rivals on this Wednesday, and we'll be on it again next week on the 22nd and 23rd. Come check it out. No, but I'm very excited to get to be here and talk about esports because, as you know, it is what I live and breathe, that and oxygen.
I mostly breathe oxygen. Every now and then, I do a little bit of esports casting on my own, starting with Tencent in Arena of Valor, and then more recently alongside Matt Liberia Clendaniel, whoever that is, I have been casting some League of Legends. Let's get
You
into
said you've been
things.
doing a little bit of oxygen. And I was getting concerned that you had like a drug habit, but then you were like, for breathing. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Whew, whew.
I've
No
been doing it
interventions
on the
today.
side. I don't want to alarm you. Let's get into things. Move on to our first block of the day. I said that we would focus on the show on the big stories in esports, and there is possibly no bigger story than the complete breakup of Microsoft's Mixer. This was their own Twitch competitor, their own streaming service, and over the last couple of weeks, it completely vanished. They posted a blog post one day that said, unfortunately, there is no more Mixer. We have been purchased by Facebook Gaming, and that was. I'm. Well, there's two minds. I'm going to say that was completely out of the blue for me. But many of the people I've spoken to have said that low viewership on the service to them heralded this as a long time coming. How did you feel?
I honestly, TJ, as I've learned never to do on air, I'm going to hedge my bets and say I was kind of in the middle because we've seen ever since Twitch's dominance in the scene, it used to be, I think, Hitbox and then Own3D.TV, I think were the other two
Oh
back in
my
the day.
god,
And
I
then
forgot
one of
about
them
Owned
got
3D.
yeah, yeah, because it got shut down because it wasn't paying people. So then suddenly all that was left was Twitch, and that kind of was the de facto state of things for a while. And then Mixer popped up, YouTube started their own live streaming service, Facebook Gaming popped up, which a few of our streamers actually operate on primarily. Very popular in Southeast Asia, hasn't really hit its stride yet here in North America. We'll talk about that a little bit later into this. But for Mixer, I was honestly expecting them to go for a little bit longer term of an investment. Nobody who's in the scene would ever be like, yeah, no, of course, that's going to be a success within a year and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to take over Twitch and it's going to have a huge market share. No, anyone who knows anything about the product and the space is going to say, all right, that's probably a slow start because you have very established streaming service in Twitch, and you have to give incentive for those users to move over. And in my view, if they had stuck with it a little bit longer, they would have found a little bit more success, and it might have become a long-term viable product. But when you dump 60 million into two contracts, and then you just
I
kind of are
wanted
like,
to
all
get
right,
to that.
been a year,
I
I'm
wanted
over.
to get to that because the reason I didn't see this coming at all is because very recently Mixer and Microsoft, of course, spent massive amounts of money acquiring exclusive streaming rights for both Ninja and Shroud, both of whom were massive on Twitch. I think they were at one point Twitch's two biggest streamers. Um, And to me, when you spend millions, literally millions of dollars acquiring multi-year streaming rights to a product, you do not then cancel your delivery method for that product and finish paying the contracts anyway. That seems
Yeah.
like that just seems like a complete inversion of what would have been the business strategy and the thinking in the company when they signed those contracts. So I've
Well,
been
because
sorry.
like a lot of us were thinking that it was like, oh, they're really pushing for Mixer. They really want this to stick around. This is a great move for them and their growth going forward. They'll pull over a few thousand viewers. That'll get the ecosystem jump started. Fantastic move for a new service. But no, that was apparently them and the death knells being like, screw it, just toss 60 million, see what happens. If this doesn't save us, we're out. And that's just like the fact that everyone thought, I think, I don't know about you, TJ, but I was just like, yeah, this is a great move for them to continue growing and not a panic life raft kind of situation.
Well, it was, I mean, it seemed like it was part of a larger Microsoft corporate strategy because if your plan is to start moving your Xbox games over onto PC as well, building an ecosystem focused around their Xbox Game Pass, which works multi platform, and you want to acquire big name streamers, right, as you start to move into this new console release cycle, it would seem like the perfect time to get a streaming service that competes with Twitch, and you can push all of your console games and all of your PC games to stream on that service. And I don't know, it was just crazy to me that they would do all this work, have all these things that line up, and then immediately pull the plug. What's maybe the explanatory factor, at least in the monetary aspect, is that they were acquired by Facebook. And Microsoft does many things, but they sure do like money. And if they're looking at a service where the numbers aren't matching up, they spent the big bucks to acquire Shroud and Mixer, or Shroud and Ninja to Mixer, and that didn't result in the numbers that they were hoping for. And then Facebook comes along and says, hey, we're interested in your technology. We want the Mixer streaming service. We want the staff. We don't particularly want the Mixer IP. We don't want to bring over any of the people who signed contractually to you. Uh, and we're willing to pay an absurd amount of money for it. Then obviously Microsoft takes that deal. And I think that may have been the separating factor.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about this is that Facebook actually did offer to buy out some of the contracts. They tried to get Shroud and Ninja back onto the service, but those two refused. And I think they offered deals to some of the smaller partners I had heard as well,
Yeah.
which some of them are turning down as well. And to a lot of outsiders, you may think, why are they turning down some guaranteed money in the turnover? Well, when you've been burned once by this exact system, you put all your time and effort into building an audience on Mixer, and then it just up and disappears, and you lose basically some of these people. This was their full-time income. They
Mm-hmm.
had, given up on their current jobs. They worked themselves to the bone in order to establish the second stream of income, then cut off that first stream and made it their primary way of living. Like they pay bills with this.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft comes in and is like, nope, never mind, see ya.
If you go
Twitch
to the
just seemed
front
a
page
stable
of
option.
Mixer, if you go to the front page of Mixer.com right now, it is still up. I'll cross my fingers on that. It reads, it's just stream after stream after stream of find me on twitch.tv. Subscribe
Yeah.
to me twitch.tv. I'm also streaming on twitch.tv. And the reason for that is just these people are trying very frantically to move the followings that they have generated on Mixer because for all the jokes that go around about its low viewership, it was no slouch. They had viewers. There are streamers who were full-time Mixer streamers that were created on that platform, and they've now got to find a way to move that viewership. And if you are looking at it as an individual creator, it is a hell of a lot easier as an American creator to move your audience from Mixer to Twitch than it would be to move your audience from Mixer to Facebook gaming. And I would
Yeah.
like to move our conversation that way because we've both had experiences with Facebook live streaming. I cast the Valor series, which was presented in partnership with Facebook, and we streamed that entire esports tournament to Facebook. I know a lot of the Arena of Valor streamers and mobile gaming streamers whom I've been friends with for a long time also got offered deals with Facebook along those lines. And that's part of their broader strategy to target the markets where Facebook is the most popular with gaming demographics, youth, that being Southeast Asia, where mobile games are very big.
Yeah, it's sort of this convergence, and the strategy makes sense. As you said, for American streamers, that conversion doesn't really make sense because Facebook Live hasn't taken off. But in some Southeast Asian countries, I remember there was one article I read where Facebook was basically the slang word for the internet, in the same way that Google has become our slang for internet search.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just gonna pop on the Facebook real quick and see how, I don't know, stocks are doing. I don't really
Well,
use
when
Facebook
when
much myself.
I'm gonna face the book. I don't know. I haven't
Yeah.
used it.
Let me just turn a page real quick. There we go.
I
Fuck
think
face.
and that is the problem here. That is the problem for Facebook gaming here, is that we're a bunch of Zoomers and millennials and we don't know what a Facebook is. Whereas over in Southeast Asia, in Asia more broadly, especially due to the way mobile plans work in a lot of those countries where you can get mobile plans that are unlimited access to Facebook, but
Mm-hmm.
not to the rest of the internet. um, People are used to interfacing with Facebook much more regularly and across much more of the generational spectrum. We do need to move on, but we won't move on from mobile gaming. Let's move on to a conversation about Hoon, who is a bit of a callback for me. I used to cast this nice lad in the Valor series, and he is the first of the streamers we're going to be highlighting today who will be providing content here on GTV. Matt, you're familiar with the nice lad. You're familiar with his run in the North American Valor series, right?
Yeah, I watched plenty of you, TJ.
You were you were tuning in to support me, and you know what? I really appreciate that. He's built a steady audience on YouTube, producing highly edited videos like this. He's also been streaming his gameplay. This is a nice little thing. This is Mobile Legends that he's currently playing, which is a competitor to Arena of Valor. But after Arena of Valor sort of stops investing in the Western market, it sure does make sense for you to
Mm-hmm.
transition your focus to a game that does. Mobile Legends is in kind of a weird place right now because you do have a lot of competitors, Wild Rift in particular, on the horizon from Riot. So there's danger on the horizon for Mobile Legends and Arena of Valor as games. But there, I have to say, has never been a better time to be a streamer that specializes in mobile games like Hoon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of the streamers that we're going to be highlighting today, especially the mobile game streamers, and even some of the variety streamers have been saying, here's the games we specialize in. And also, hey, when it comes out, Wild Rift. So it's kind of like everyone's in the Wild Rift waiting room at the moment. So when when it pops off, it's going to pop off huge. And we don't even know what the esports scene is going to look at. We're going to talk about another Riot game whose esports scene is developing later.
Oh, I had a different segue. I thought you were going to say we were going to talk about another guy in the waiting room. And that is Zane. They played on the same team, Blue Martini Gaming, and they were both dominant in the North American Arena of Valor scene. This is Zane, who's now playing a lot of Mobile Legends alongside Hoon sometimes, and he too has built a YouTube audience around a lot of the same content. I remember Zane in the Valor series for just his mechanical outplays, doing stuff that nobody else was doing in competitive mobile games. So I'm really excited to see if that transfers across mobile games. I have to say, I was cutting this little short demonstration of his content, although we're currently showing off his editing. I was cutting this little short demonstration of his content, and I was like, oh, that's Zane! He's still got it! He's still got the fast thumbs!
It's still Zane. It's
Um,
funny because I remember Zane for a very different reason, TJ. I remember that one of my first casts of Arena of Valor had Zane in it, and he was using special characters for every single letter in his name. And I had to end up asking my co-caster, hey, who's that? And they're like, it's Zane, man. How do you not know? I'm like, oh, because this is my first time. They're like, you'll remember him. And lo and behold, TJ, I do.
yeah. Oh my god, sorry, I'm getting distracted by his play, so we'll take it off stream real quick. He did absolutely destroy the Arena of Valor scene here. He was the NA star who pretty much single-handedly carried NA teams at times. So it's really fun to see him, and it's a really exciting time for streamers like him, again, who have this highly transferable skill in a very specific genre of mobile MOBA games, with the Pokemon one on the horizon, which we didn't even
Oh,
touch on, the Wild Rift one from Riot on the horizon, and of course Mobile Legends spending a lot of money on their esports scene right now.
yeah, I absolutely can't wait for either of them, and especially because Riot has this tendency to actually support all of their games. Sometimes we complain about publishers like Valve who are just like, all right, CS:GO, go off into the wilderness, my child. And then that just kind of
Or
is how it is for a little
Counter-Strike.
bit. But
Yeah, no, Riot's earned a lot of points with how much they support their scenes, and I'm really excited for the future of mobile gaming. We're gonna try and do our best Riot Games impression here, though, Matt. Let's support our own scene. Let's talk through really quickly some of the people that are joining us here, specifically from mobile gaming. We have three of them highlighted. Would you like to introduce Chris?
yeah, Cheese Goulet Gaming is one of our mobile gaming streamers over here. Primarily a YouTube audience coming out of him. Plays games like Rise of Kingdoms, World War Doe, which is really unique out of the streamers that we're going to be showcasing today because those are some underserved games. Fairly popular, but there's not a ton of streamers who are really good at expressing the ideas behind them and having informational content. And that's really exciting to have Chiscole on them because he's a former professional workshop instructor. So really
Oh,
has those skills to get across ideas and try and teach the chat some things. So
and
that's a very unique kind of content that I in particular really enjoy. Anything educational, I'm in.
that was something that really, obviously, we're both esports casters, so we care a lot about, the educational side of games and learning how to get really good at specific things. But mobile gaming has a huge hole in its market right now, where the YouTube content is much more focused around top players showing off their highlight reels or funny goofs and gags, and especially in the West, people don't take those games as seriously as like competitive titles or as
Mm-hmm.
titles that you need to be taught and learn about. So one of the things that actually we have a couple people here at GTV succeeding at is taking a more serious angle towards those games, such as Matt.
But it's Hitman! Uh, he's after me, TJ. I need to run away after this one. But Arena of Valor, and we're going to see this a lot. Wild Rift as well when that comes out. Player, former professional player for AOV, right?
Yes, he played in the North American scene, and that was something that was really fun to me because the North American Arena of Valor scene feels kind of like a wild ride that I got off at some point, and I'm not sure whether or not it's a dream. I like had a fever dream for 2 years about a roller coaster, and every now and then I just run into somebody and I'm like, "Oh man, you played Arena of Valor, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, I remember you." And it's really fun to get to touch base with all of these people again here on this project because I'm seeing all these names and hearing all these familiar voices. When I was building that reel for Zane earlier, I was like, I remember this guy asking the most adorable questions whenever we were in airports and stuff because I was there for like I think his first ever plane ride. So I'm
Oh,
getting to reconnect with all of these Arena of Valor players, and I think that is a group of people that, like me, got a lot of experience very, very quickly and didn't really have a platform to use it on, if that makes sense. Because Arena of Valor was sort of flash in the pan here in the West, and now they're getting to take everything they learned with the interest and advertising money that was spent during that very narrow period of time and bring it out to everything else.
yeah. And a lot of former Arena of Valor players are going to be showing up here. Of course, Blue Martini Gaming was a huge organization within the scene. So we've got another one here. No longer not a pro player here, but Royal Games still a fan of Arena of Valor. And look at that, TJ. Wild Rift.
Wild Rift. Man, the Wild Rift waiting room is wild. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Hence the name, I
Because
guess.
I like obviously everyone's excited for Wild Rift. I've been following the leaks. I'm in like 4 different discords where they're just like collecting Chinese screenshots of videos and drawing diagrams and being like, if you look here, you can see that they're able to use this skill shot and bend the arrows this way. Um, so I'm not sure how I feel about the excitement around it because everyone who plays these games like Royal does, who's good at these games like Royal is obviously knows that Riot Games is going to have the power to make Wild Rift the next big thing,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure yet that it will be the thing that brings mobile gaming into the front here in the West, and that's kind of the big question I think over all of this.
Well, I think it's going to be a similar effect that games like Quake had very early on, games like Doom had on PC gaming, where everyone was like, "Yeah, console games are the real games." And then the first
Yeah.
person shooter on a PC came out, and they're like, "Hey, this Quake thing might be a really fun competitive game." And from there, I mean, it just blew out into this massive scene, and now people think of PC gaming as the bigger scene than console gaming sometimes. Whereas, years ago, back in the olden days when Jesus was a boy, I wasn't even born yet. Um, Fun fact, I'm not contemporaneous with Jesus.
I
Uh,
do not know whether or not I should be surprised by that, but I'm gonna go with a
all
hard
right.
no, Matt.
Yeah, but I think Wild Rift, if anything, is going to be the one game that can bring that sort of shift towards the Western market, where they're just like, okay, mobile gaming, it's like a thing that we have to finally acknowledge. It's no longer just Candy Crush. There's some actual worthy titles on here.
Hmm.
We've been there for a while, but we're kind of waiting for all our colleagues to catch up with us.
Yeah, although amongst the circles, the very specific and narrow circles of esports casters, I am starting to see a lot of esports casters be like, "Oh, actually, I played Wild Rift, I played Arena of Valor, and it was super cool." And one of the things I noted, we were talking about Facebook gaming earlier. Um, we now have Royal Games, by the way, does stream on Facebook. Catch them there. Um, we were talking earlier about how Facebook gaming is very focused on the mobile esports market. We now have 2 Western-focused streaming services with the addition of Tencent's Trovo, who are very interested in capturing the mobile esports market. We've had Tencent pushing other games such as Call of Duty Mobile very hard here in the West. So I think we are poised for an explosion, and as an esports caster, I hope that'll bring competitive along. And if it does bring competitive along, then, and here's the segue, Matt, they'll need a coach. They'll need a brain coach. Talk to me about our upcoming show here on this very channel called No Tilt Mind with Landon.
So I actually found this really interesting. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
he's taking off the glasses.
not actually crying about it. I just had an eyelash in my eye, and we'll work that one out. So Landon is a mental conditioning coach, and I actually have a quote pulled up from him on the screen here. You can see it in the middle, but I've got to pull it from the actual slide, which I found really lovely, and it's something that I actually genuinely connect with. My goal isn't just to create elite esports athletes, as I like to call them, athletes, but TJ hates that. So I'm going to run through before he can yell at me. But to build healthier and happier people through gaming. And I just love that
Athletes.
because I think one of the big problems we have, and I'm sure you've noticed because you've worked very closely with a lot of the pros in Arena of Valor, and I noticed in my time at the LPL was a lot of these players don't get to have a very healthy work-life balance. They don't really get to have a chance to have a holistically healthy lifestyle. And there's recently been a push from bigger orgs like TSM and RNG out in China to work towards a more holistic, healthy environment for their players. So I love any programming that's pushing its way towards trying to provide that at an individual level instead of just being like, all right, you finally made it to the big leagues. Now we care about your mental health.
Yeah. One of the things I always encountered, and I noticed this actually especially, and this is a fun conversation to have right in front of all the Arena of Valor people, because I'm about to talk about your mental health. I noticed this especially in Arena of Valor, where there was a decent amount of money, people were playing it full time because there was that kind of money in the prizing, but there was not enough that people were getting paid to take care of their mental health. There was enough of an audience that these people are having to spend time dedicated to streaming, playing games on stream, building games for their recording, editing games for their highlights. And all of that leads to just complete and total burnout. One of the most depressing car rides I've ever had, and it is a very it's tight competition. I've had a lot of depressing car rides. My dad drove a Subaru. One of the most depressing car rides I've ever had was the bus back from Valor Series Season 3, where I was sitting with a lot of the top NA and EU players at what we knew was going to be the last Arena of Valor LAN event. And I was getting to talk with them on that way back about how they were doing as people, what their plans were next. And it was really kind of astounding because many of these people didn't know what they were going to be doing next. It takes a very competitive drive and a very niche skill set to be as incredibly good as you need to be to win a tournament in a game like Arena of Valor, and they hadn't had the resources to plan for the next step, and they hadn't had the resources to take care of themselves while they were in the game. So one of the things I hope will happen with No Tilt Mind is Landon will have the opportunity to kind of reach out to these people as they are watching our services, they are playing games and being invested in the gaming community, and before they're in a place where they're playing competitively and they're burning themselves out trying to manage 6 different things.
Yeah, it's okay to have fun sometimes, guys. You don't have to work 24/7. You can work like 23/6.
That's a call
That's
out
a
to
little
me
bit
specifically, Matt. We've had that conversation, and it is hard, because I'm not a particularly competitive person, but I am a person who uh, loves their work, loves esports. It is, like many people in this industry, a hobby that now happens to be my full-time job.
yeah.
And building that separation between being a pro gamer or a pro caster and having a separate hobby and having time to go outside, go for a run, and you've talked about this, not feel guilty about it, not feel like you're neglecting your time if you take care of your physical and mental well-being, is really important.
Yeah, because I remember, when I'm sure you can relate to this, but when I was working in the LPL, one of my first weeks over in China, I worked literal 100-hour weeks for 2 weeks straight.
Hmm.
And that is super unhealthy. That's 12 hours a day, literally every single day of the week for 2 weeks straight. Would not recommend it, but I dropped down to 80 a week and I felt guilty. And then I dropped down to 70 and I felt guiltier. But I was
Yeah,
driving myself insane with those crazy work hours because you realize that there's always, in jobs like ours and in jobs like being a programmer, there's always something more that you can be doing to improve yourself. And in a lot of traditional jobs, it kind of doesn't matter as much how well you're doing at it. If you're just hitting the baseline, you're not going to get fired because you're not the best. Like, otherwise, they wouldn't have multiple openings for that role. That's
yeah.
just not how it works. But in professional gaming and casting, it really is, if you're not the best in your price range, you're fired straight
You
up.
are you are the product, and that means that anytime you're not spending improving the product is less money you're going to get paid very tangibly. But if you fall into that mindset, then you burn yourself out and everything comes to a screeching halt real fast. So the No Tilt Minds podcast can be found, I see actually Sancho, Brian, in the chat, dropping a link to the Apple podcast, and it will be here as well. We are going to take the advice of Landon himself and throw ourselves over to a lightning fast break. You like that segue, man? We will be back with a look ahead. We have more news, we have more gamers, we have more GTV right after this. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back to Esports Central. My name's still TJ. I still do have one Matt Niberia Clendaniel alongside me, and it's time for the second half of our show. Matt, you have a good break?
I did. I was really chilling, taking a mental health break, really resetting myself, making sure I didn't tilt. Don't know
You
how you
know,
tilt in the live broadcast, but
it's the no-tilt mind. You got the training.
that's right.
What's impressive to me is that your girlfriend, Lucia, always talks about mental health popsicles, and somehow you've resisted that. You don't have the mental health popsicle. And I don't quite
I
know
I
how you've held off on that, but I'm pretty...
I have some. I had one last night, in fact,
Oh
TJ.
no! Alright, he's
Yeah.
been corrupted. It's time to move on. Let's get back into the gamers you will be seeing right here on Esports Central and, of course, the associated channels. This is our very first of a second category we're calling the pros. Tell me about Atom.
Okay, so Adam is actually one of. We have some really unique pros in terms of qualifications because a lot of times I was expecting it to just be like, all right, here's 7 AOV pros, and then here's
Mhm.
6 AOV not quite pros. It's not the case. We have variety here. We bring in you all kinds of content, all kinds of players. So Adam started
A
off
buffet.
in PUBG, but also plays Escape from Tarkov, another battle royale. Streams on Twitch, and still is a pro in PUBG, placing first at the Paris Games Weeks in 2018 for the 2v2 tournament, and played in all 3 seasons of the NPL Contenders League from seasons 1 to 3. So lots of experience there with PUBG.
I was the producers I worked with for Valor series went on to produce the American Pro Leagues for the PUBG scene, and I was always following that as a result. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't super invested in PUBG. It wasn't really my thing, but getting to tune in every now and then, I really appreciated how difficult it was as a competitive sport and how engaging it was as a competitive viewing experience, even for someone who doesn't really like playing PUBG. It's just actually the Hunger Games, and getting to watch that
But
is
with
super
guns.
fun, and getting, thinking about playing it, thinking about the complexities you have to manage because you're thinking about literally the number of factors that can fit on an open world map of that size is really insane. So I have the utmost respect for those who manage to go big in PUBG. We have many more, though, and this one is a little closer to your area of expertise, I know. Fast44 bringing in the Hearthstone experience.
Yeah, I think Fast 44 is a really unique pro and very young as well. Get to that in a second. Pro for a year so far, competed in 3 Master Stores already, which is the highest level of competition for Hearthstone, and qualified for the Red Bull Season 2 Worlds. But fun fact, was too young to actually compete in it. So incredibly high level player, just hasn't quite hit the gap where they're allowed to show it off to the world. But
Uh,
luckily, still gets the streams out, still gets the content out to the masses.
and we were talking about games with a lot of factors that you have to kind of manage. I'm going to get myself in trouble here. I think there are a lot of similarities between playing Hearthstone competitively and playing PUBG competitively.
Mm,
Now, the man's closed his eyes, he's squinting them in terror. The thing about both of them is that they are
Cards
risk.
don't have guns, TJ.
Well, on Hearthstone they do, so that is your first mistake. The thing
Oh,
about
okay, of
both
course.
Hearthstone and I don't know, I think there's one card with a gun, but I could be mixing them up. The thing about Hearthstone and PUBG is they're both risk management probability simulators, right? And to me, that's the hardest class of competitive game to be really good at, is the ones where there's just hundreds of thousands of different things that can go wrong, that the opponent can be doing, that you need to be factoring in. And deck building games like Hearthstone are a really fun example of that because a professional player, and this is something that I really look for in streamers, and I know Fast44 does a good job of, can explain why they're thinking of 44 billion different options and they've narrowed it down to just these three things that are actually important, are actually viable, and they're worried about and they're calculating in. So the ability to calculate what the opponent is doing, what you could do, and what your best odds of winning are. And PUBG and Hearthstone have that similarity.
Oh, I'll let it slide, I guess. Like I don't agree with you, but I've learned enough to not try and fight you on this because you will just wear me down with experience.
That is my superpower. Give me another week. I'll have everyone convinced. Talk to me about this boy because Mattel is actually really close to my area of expertise.
I was gonna say, I feel like you should be talking a little bit about the past games. Paladins, you used to cast that.
That was the first game I ever commentated. If you're looking for some really embarrassing footage of 15, 16-year-old me casting some games, Paladins is the first game I ever casted. I think it was probably technically actually Counter-Strike, but I, did some like community leagues for that. And I was an admin for those leagues, and they were like, "Wow, your voice is kind of weird. You should try casting." And that's how I got started casting, and I was moving into Paladins right as it started because it was this super fun tactical shooter that always felt a little bit better on the gunplay, on the movement, than something like Overwatch, which was its major competitor, of course. And now, like many of the players who were really good at Paladins, who were really good at Overwatch, Mitau has moved forth into the new uncharted territory that is Valorant.
Yeah, a lot of players are moving off to Riot Games properties recently, but between this and Wild Rift, we really
Yeah,
have it covered there.
the Riot Games channel. I think that's taken.
You think so?
The thing about Paladins and Valorant that is very similar to me is the way they move. And this was something that I really hated about Overwatch. Everything in Overwatch feels very floaty. But Paladins always felt very grounded to me, which, even with all the super jump abilities, led to gunplay and gameplay that was all about individual mechanics. And I see that Mittal actually did claim first in the Pro Circuit qualifier, so he's got those in spades. It's a requirement. We're gonna keep moving though. Matt, I know you were talking about this during the break. You were super excited because there's a through line between the first show we chose to highlight here on GTV and the second one.
Boom. There is. So this is Gamer Cash with Pax, who is a former professional player and is trying to make a focus on educating gamers on the importance of saving and investing their money, their prize winnings, their contract money for their future and giving them something to fall back on. Because as you were talking about, TJ, that most depressing bus ride of all time,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of those players just really didn't have a plan for their future and didn't know what was coming next for them. And I think if they had had some place to go to try and figure out, without actually needing to hire an accountant, because nobody can afford that on gamer money, trying to figure out the best way to make a nest egg for yourself, have a guaranteed future where at the very least, maybe you need to pick up another job in like 6 months or whatever, but you don't go from being gainfully employed as an esports athlete into immediately being, I have no money. I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do next and starting panicking. So I really like the concept and execution of this show because it teaches you, you know, how to not end up like MC Hammer. To give a reference that might be a little dated for you,
Or
TJ.
Nick Cage. I can follow you on Nick Cage.
There you go. There you
Um,
go.
I think it's fun though because Pax is applying broader lessons, right? It's not just people making Nicolas Cage money because there are people, very narrow selection of people who get handed thousands and thousands of dollars as pro gamers for a very short period of time. And turns out you hand teenagers thousands and thousands of dollars. It doesn't always go great. But there's also a broader lesson for people that are gamers in the more classical sense of the word, where they do play video games, because that is a teenage audience that has, I think, not a lot of information about paying your taxes and knowing where to invest and knowing how to save for the future. And especially in a modern economy, I sure wish there had been somebody when I was a kid bundling my interest in gaming with the financial lessons I needed to know as a teenager. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of good that can come out of Pax's show there.
I didn't even have a finances class at all in high school.
Really? That's
Yeah,
awful.
no, or a government and civics class didn't have that either. They were just like, nope. But our one teacher did put on a class that was just like, all right, here's how to pay your rent. Here's how much money you need in order to buy a house with this much. And then she was just like, look, I'm going to be honest. Most of you are just going to be renting for the rest of your lives because financially it just makes more sense. And I was like, Alyssa, I don't want to hear that. I want to live the American dream. Please lie to me.
Well, I have bad news. Alyssa, actually, you thought she was your teacher. She was actually Pax, wearing a little bit of a wig, some facial makeup. And
Pretty interesting because she was like 5'6", tatted up with piercings. So
that was part of the disguise, and Alyssa's back, ready for Gamer Cash with Pax. Let's head into... Sorry, Pax. Let's head into... I'm not sure how to segue out of that. Our final roster of gamers that will be appearing here on GTV. I want to start at the top with Durson, who is, I understand, not your high school budgeting teacher?
as far as I'm aware, does have black hair. Durson, tell me if you drive a motorcycle and or own a Jetta with a truck horn in it. That's a true story about Alyssa. Drove it up to school one time and we just see this little tiny Jetta and she honks the horn and is I'm like, I miss
That
Alyssa.
is-
I'm ready for math.
That is the kind of powerful energy I expect from Durson. He's a streamer who used to play professionally in Arena of Valor, played a ton of Smite and League of Legends, as well as currently Sea of Thieves. And I'm excited for that selection of things. I've been really enjoying Sea of Thieves over the last year as it's been streamed on Twitch. It's a really fun kind of sandbox for role-playing and storytelling. So watching really entertaining people play it is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think Durson is one of the first of a few variety streamers we're going to be highlighting today as well, because there's really two types of streamers. There's the one that picks a game, sticks with it, and has the chance of burning themselves out and then just stopping streaming. And there's the other kind, the variety streamers, who are just like, today I want to play this, tomorrow I'm going to play that, and on Thursday I'm going to play a third thing. And that is the modus operandi of both Durson2K and Connor Lobo.
What a sick segue. This man also plays Sea of Thieves and GTA 5. So there's a extra segue there. GTA 5 is now not a game I would be interested in normally. I don't play big, broad, open world games. I like my narrative experiences to be tight and short. But it's been enjoying a bit of a renaissance on Twitch and other streaming services, as well as a platform again for role-playing, where streamers can come in and tell their own stories in the multiplayer, building their own characters and interacting with each other. And that's been a lot of fun to follow, again, as a viewer, and also as kind of a community story. Because the creative side of playing games, the telling of your own stories in these games, is a lot of fun to see a broader gaming community get involved in. It's very creative and interesting. And I wouldn't have guessed that the next Minecraft would be a pirate game and a Grand Theft Auto game.
No, I wouldn't have guessed that either, TJ. I don't think anyone would have, honestly.
He's also the second Brazilian streamer we're highlighting today. We don't want to brush over that because, of course, the LATAM community is incredibly fun for me. I think possibly the best memories in my life are getting to cast Arena of Valor down in Brazil. But we got to move on. We do got a time clock ticking. So tell me about Looter.
All right, we got a time clock ticking, TJ. I'm ready to go. All right, Looter, League of Legends, Valorant, another Riot Games combo. See it, love it. Current challenger in 3 regions: Latin America North, North America, and Japan. What? Grew up in Japan for 16 years, then moved to the States. Now his top challenger is the highest rank in League of Legends, maintains it in 3 servers simultaneously. Now that's impressive because I can't even get silver on a server that's that high ping. So the fact that he's able to maintain it on Japan as well from the States, absolutely unbelievably impressive.
What was your rank playing on the China server when you were there for the LPL?
High silver. I just won.
Why are you trying to use pig as an excuse, Matt?
I said I couldn't reach silver on the servers with higher ping.
And you also can't reach it on the servers with low ping, Matt.
I, high silver is in silver, TJ. I don't know what else to say.
All right.
You can't drive a car. I'm driving a car right now, TJ. Well, you can't drive a Lamborghini. It's like, no, because I can't afford one, but I can drive a car. You
But
see me in this car driving.
one of the things
Anyways, that's
about League
looter.
of Legends in Japan is that it's exploding right now. So it's the perfect time to be challenger on the Japanese server. They are launching a big competitive effort right now. The Japanese Pro League is actually really fun to watch. I don't even speak any Japanese, but the JPL has some really fun games and some spectacular ads.
We'll be talking
Uh,
a little bit more about Japan in our last news segment as well. Got something
ooh,
there.
exciting. Yes, I see. I was like, how? And then it all came together. The Rude Jude, we were trying to find a little bit more information on him, and he was actually streaming live as we were setting all this up. So I got to catch a little bit of him playing PUBG with his mates earlier, and that is one of the many games he plays. He's got his roots inside Battlefield. He is the owner of a clan that comes from Battlefield, Wallbang Esports. So I'm really looking forward to that because those are FPS games. I love FPS games, but PUBG, Battlefield, Call of Duty, and Halo are all of the FPS games that I'm garbage at, despite generally being good at FPS games. Like, cannot play any of them. So whenever I tune in and see someone like I saw Rude streaming earlier today being really good at PUBG, it is like I'm instantly hooked because I just don't get how people can be good at those games.
See, I'm lucky, TJ, because I feel that way about every single game that isn't Final Fantasy 14, because I'm bad at all of them.
And he casts like 3 other games. He does not commentate Final Fantasy XIV. Uh, but one of the games you do play, one of the games you, I believe, have commentated, is
I have.
StarCraft. And that is our final highlight of the day as far as people who are joining us on this wonderful adventure. Tell me a little bit more about Indie StarCraft.
So, Indie StarCraft is our first EU content creator here on GTV, a Polish lad who is a professional commentator now, former player, former StarCraft pro, who now commentates games on his YouTube channel and won the Clash Casters Invitational, which I just like to give as a flex for him. It's a caster tournament, sure, but he still won, damn it, and that counts for something.
There's
So,
nothing more important as a caster than beating other casters in tournament format.
exactly. I have done it once. We used to have one of the tournaments I used to work on, Learning Fives, had show matches. And I played Sona and we won both games. So I'm just saying my Sona's pretty great and I am objectively better than the other 5 staff members on the opposing team.
My secret trick for winning staff tournaments is I challenge them to play games they're not good at. Because I'm like pretty broad good at a lot of different weird games. So you take the guy who's really good at League of Legends and you challenge him to 1v1 you in Counter-Strike. And then you take the guy who's really good at Counter-Strike and you challenge him to 1v1 you in like Battle Right or something. But Indy did it legit. Playing StarCraft and commentating it, a game so complicated I can't even process it. You have a few more brain cells than me, so you've been following the scene and keeping up with it. You occasionally try and enlighten me. So I'm glad you'll have a friend now, Matt.
Yeah, finally, someone else to talk StarCraft with. Because every time I'm like, hey, this StarCraft thing, you're like, haha, more pylons, right? And honestly, getting you to that point is one of the finer missions I've achieved in life. Because before
I
that, you
got
were
it.
like, what's StarCraft?
Haha, but acquire more pylons. I got it.
Yeah, there you go.
One of the things I do unironically got, though, is some knowledge about Valorant. And that brings us to our final story of the show. Valorant has started launching their own esports series recently. We're about midway through it right now. It is the Valorant Ignition series, which is a series of partnered tournaments. They're joining with various tournament organizers. Actually, a lot of them are esports teams, like T1, like Immortals, and having them run tournaments. And that's very different from how Riot Games organize their esports scene in League of Legends, for instance. As a lifelong League of Legends player, how do you feel about that?
I so it's really interesting. So the story for those who don't know about esports in general and League of Legends specifically, the way esports normally works, I'm going to use Super Smash Bros. Because my cousin was actually a professional Smash Bros. Player, so I actually know how that one worked. It's a competitive game. You just played it, and then someone's like, "Hey, we should all play together." And then a bunch of sweaty dudes pick up their GameCubes and they go into some conference center or whatever. Well, someone decided we need to find a way to pay for this conference center at some point because, all right, maybe we'll do entry fees. And then maybe we get a sponsor and go from there and go from there. And it sort of becomes a grassroots thing. What Riot did that was really unique at the time and is now sort of the de facto way to do things is they said, okay, our game's popular. Let's just pay for the tournaments ourselves. Let's just start a league ourselves, pay for the tournament, and make it the only way that you can play League of Legends competitively. So they became a monopoly of their own market and then expanded that market by expanding the game. And it sort of became this synergistic marketing thing where they're like, oh my God, what's the LCS? It's for this game called League of Legends. What's League of Legends? I should play that. Now I'm going to watch more LCS because I played League of Legends and I get it now. So that was really successful for them, but there are some complaints that people have had. They've said, well, Riot controls everything. I want to see different tournament organizers. I want to see some third-party tournaments. And Riot really loosened up on that after, I want to say, 2015. They were just like, all right, we're going to release the reins. LCS is still going to be the main thing. But if you want to run your tournaments on the side, fantastic, fine. Their solution, by the way, was just to have so many tournaments that none of the top-tier teams could do anything other than the Riot leagues. So keep that in mind if you're trying to do something similar yourself.
For
So
all the
really,
big game developers looking to harness their
for all the
competitive
big
scene.
game developers sitting in the chat. What I thought was really cool though was that Riot is now taking a sort of hybrid situation here. They're taking the approach of, okay, we liked how we sort of guaranteed some success and stability for our game early on, and that contributed to its massive growth so quickly. But we didn't like how the community didn't feel involved in any of the competitive aspects of the scene. So the way they solved this was they got all the organizations who run tournaments. G2 was the first invitational, I believe, out of 20 that they're going to host. Second one was Rage out in Japan. Told you I'd bring it back. And
it's a
now,
callback. We just talked about Japan. That's crazy, Matt. How'd you do that? Sorry, continue.
Pure talent, TJ. Pure talent. But now Riot have come up with this cool hybrid solution that gets all the players, all the organizations involved and invested and still able to shape the scene the way they want. And Riot get to still be involved in their own game and provide prizing, provide essentially a marketing opportunity for themselves by adding finances into the mix. So I think that's a really cool middle ground that I hope more organizers and specifically Riot themselves continue with.
I think the dangerous part to me is that this is sort of how League of Legends started as well, right? If you remember, League of Legends, while it wasn't a very profitable experience to run tournaments in, they let other people handle it. And then when the audience got big enough that Riot were like, hey, hang on, we could be making money, they said, okay, maybe we're the only people that should be making money. And at some point, if Riot decide that they want to be running tournaments in Valorant, for how much longer does it make sense to let other people continue running tournaments in Valorant? And I don't think we're anywhere near something like the LCS, Riot's competitive league for League of Legends, where the LCS is, an MLB and NBA size organization. I believe it's the third most watched sports league. There's a motorcycle outside and maybe your budgeting teacher. I believe it's the third most watched sports league among youth in America. So it's like huge. And I don't think anything like that is coming soon because it took them years to get to that point. But I think 5 years down the line, if we are still seeing Riot partner with tournament organizers for Valorant, I will be surprised. And that will either be because Valorant has died and nobody is making any money running tournaments for Valorant, or because Valorant, Riot have really changed up their pattern and they want to let the community run that scene. And I think Riot are a little bit too shrewd businessmen to let that happen.
I think they have taken a new strategy as a company as a whole, and I think they want to push themselves more into the publisher side of things, actually. Just the amount of decisions they've been making recently. They announced a whole slew of games. They have a fighting game. They have Legends of Runeterra. They have TFT. They have, I think, an ARPG in the works, which I'm going to play the hell out of when it comes out. But until then, I just get to be sad. And they've also started with Riot Forge, which is their version of being like an angel publisher. They're like, all right, you publish under us, we give you this money, you make your game, and we publish it. We get to say it's a Riot Games product. And I think there's rumors that they partnered with Kojima for one of those games.
That would
Who
be
is it?
astounding. I have not heard those rumors, but I'm excited, Matt. So you better not be lying to me.
I hope the rumors are right too, because that would be absolutely insane. Riot Games plus Kojima. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because Kojima is something that I don't want to explore on a live broadcast, but he makes good games. Supposedly.
I don't want to explore Hideo Kojima on a live broadcast. I don't know what the terms of service are on that. No, Riot's been expanding a lot recently, and I'm going to be fascinated to see, because it's not just Valorant, right? They also have Legends of Runeterra, which is their Hearthstone competitor. You'll probably be seeing some of that around GTV. They also have Teamfight Tactics, which is their Dota Auto Chess competitor. You'll probably, again, be seeing some of that around GTV. It is a mobile game. So those games will have esports scenes as well. Right now, all of that is happening through partners. They're partnering with different organizations to run tournaments. And I don't think Riot has the bandwidth to run properly esports tournaments in all of those games. But I suspect they will begin to grow as it makes sense for them. And I think the question is just how hostile that takeover will be.
I think it's interesting, actually, TJ. You might not know this, but I only found this out by watching his stream, but their former head of esports retired in order to become a TFT pro.
Well, that explains why that world championship is coming. He's got to get the money back. It's a money laundering scheme, Matt. All right, we got to wrap this show up. This is the end of Esports Central, a very special episode. My name has been TJ. You can find me on Twitter at esportstj. Matt in Iberia, Glendaniel. In a word, how was it and where can people find you? You can use a couple words, actually.
Okay, because I was wondering how I'm going to do that with one word, because I could be like, at Niberia good, but that's not my Twitter handle.
That's 3 words.
It's fantastic. You can find me on Twitter at Niberia, Nibiria, because nobody can spell it.
Least of all me with my terrible dyslexia. Thank you so much for watching. There will be more GTV action in your near future. Stay tuned to this channel. Stay tuned to all the news. Thank you so much. And for now, have a great rest of your day.